The sky is burning, not with fire alone, but with certainty. The ground shakes as if the earth itself knows what must happen next. Across the shattered plain of the final battlefield, a single figure rides forward in silence. Odin, the Allfather, does not shout commands. He does not raise his spear in triumph. He rides knowing this is the last road he will ever travel. Ahead of him stands the wolf. Fenrir towers over everything that still remains. His body blocks the horizon. His shadow swallows armies. His jaws stretch impossibly wide, the lower scraping the broken land, the upper tearing into the sky itself. Fire pours from his eyes. Smoke spills from his breath. This is not rage. This is fulfillment. Odin sees it clearly now. Every sacrifice. Every choice. Every attempt to delay this moment has led here. He does not turn away. In the world of the Norse, courage is not about victory. It is about facing what cannot be changed. Fenrir lunges forward. The wolf opens his jaws. And the ruler of the gods disappears into darkness. This is not the end of a story. This is the conclusion of one that began long before gods existed. To understand Fenrir, one must abandon the idea that monsters are born evil. In Norse mythology, nothing begins as evil or good. Everything begins as necessary. Fenrir was not created to destroy Odin. He was created because the world itself demands balance. And balance, in the Norse mind, is never gentle. The people who told this story lived on the edge of survival. Harsh winters. Endless darkness. Violent seas. Life in the north did not promise comfort. It promised struggle. From this struggle grew a belief system unlike any other. The Norse did not believe the universe was kind. They believed it was honest. Their gods were not perfect. They aged. They feared. They failed. And most importantly, they would die. This single belief changes everything. In many mythologies, gods exist to protect the world forever. In Norse mythology, gods exist knowing they will lose. Ragnarok is not a distant rumor. It is written law. Every god knows their death awaits them. The question is not how to escape fate. The question is how to meet it. Fenrir is born from this worldview. Before the wolf was feared, before he was bound, before prophecy named him destroyer, the universe itself was already shaped by destruction. There was no peaceful beginning. There was only emptiness. Before time had meaning, there was Ginnungagap, a vast and silent void. To the north lay Niflheim, a realm of ice and endless cold. To the south burned Muspelheim, a world of fire and chaos. Between them, nothing existed. No light. No sound. No life. When the heat of Muspelheim met the frost of Niflheim, ice began to melt. From that melting, existence stirred. Not gently, but violently. From the dripping frost emerged Ymir, the first giant. He was not a god. He was not a demon. He was raw being itself. From him came the first generation of giants, born not from love, but from the friction of extremes. Alongside Ymir appeared Audhumla, the great cosmic cow. From her milk, Ymir was nourished. As she licked the salt from the frozen ice, she uncovered another form. Buri. The ancestor of the gods. From Buri came Bor. From Bor came Odin and his brothers Vili and Ve. These gods were not creators in the way later religions imagined creation. They were shapers. They did not speak the world into existence. They killed to make it. Odin and his brothers slew Ymir. His blood drowned nearly all giants. From his body, the world was assembled. Flesh became land. Blood became sea. Bones became mountains. His skull formed the sky. Sparks from Muspelheim became stars. From his eyebrows, Midgard was formed, a fragile enclosure meant to protect humans from the chaos beyond. The Norse never forgot this truth. The world was built from a corpse. Creation was an act of violence. Order was stolen from chaos. And what is stolen can always be taken back. Odin understood this better than any other god. He was not satisfied with strength alone. He wanted knowledge. Not comfort. Not reassurance. Knowledge. Knowledge of fate. Knowledge of endings. Knowledge of how the world truly works. For wisdom, Odin paid unbearable prices. He sacrificed one of his eyes at Mimir's well. He hung himself from Yggdrasil, the world tree, pierced by his own spear, for 9 nights. No food. No water. Only pain. Only silence. Only the hunger to understand. This is the paradox of Odin. He seeks knowledge to prevent destruction, yet every truth he uncovers confirms it cannot be avoided. The more he learns, the heavier the future becomes. And then the prophecy comes. Not whispered. Not vague. Clear and unavoidable. 3 children will be born who will bring about the end of the gods. They are born not from some distant threat, but from within the circle of the gods themselves. Loki, Odin's blood brother, clever and dangerous, fathers these children with the giantess Angrboda. From this union come Hel, Jormungandr, and Fenrir. Fear spreads through Asgard before any crime is committed. Hel is cast into the underworld. Jormungandr is thrown into the sea. Fenrir alone is brought to Asgard. At first, he is only a wolf pup. Large. Watchful. Silent. He grows faster than anything the gods have seen. With every passing day, his strength increases. His presence unsettles them. Not because of what he does, but because of what they know he will do. Only one god dares to feed him. Tyr. God of law and honor. Fenrir senses something in Tyr that the others lack. Not fear. Not deception. Trust. But trust is fragile when surrounded by prophecy. As Fenrir grows, the gods stop seeing him as a being and start seeing him as an outcome. The wolf does not know his destiny. He only knows he is watched. Measured. Judged. This is where Fenrir's tragedy truly begins. He is not born evil. He is born feared. And fear, when it governs action, creates exactly what it seeks to avoid. To understand why the gods feared Fenrir so deeply, one must first understand how the Norse viewed fate itself. Fate was not chance. It was not punishment. It was not something earned or avoided. Fate was structure. An invisible architecture that held the universe together. Even the gods moved within it. Even Odin, with all his wisdom, could only see its shape, never rewrite it. This belief shaped the Norse mind in every way. A man did not ask whether he would die. He asked how. A king did not ask whether his reign would end. He asked whether it would be remembered. Survival was never the highest goal. Honor was. Courage was. To face what must come without flinching was the highest virtue. This is why Ragnarok was not feared in the way later apocalypses would be feared. It was mourned. It was prepared for. It was accepted. And yet, acceptance did not mean passivity. The gods knew their end was coming, but knowing did not stop them from trying to delay it. This contradiction lies at the heart of Fenrir's story. The gods accept fate in theory, but resist it in practice. And that resistance is what gives Fenrir his power. Fenrir grows in Asgard under constant observation. He is fed. He is trained. But he is never embraced. The gods speak of him in lowered voices. They test him under the guise of games. They measure his strength and whisper among themselves. Fenrir notices everything. Wolves are not simple creatures in Norse thought. They are perceptive. Patient. Intelligent. Fenrir senses that his presence disturbs the balance of Asgard. He does not yet know why. The gods debate endlessly. Should they kill him? Prophecy forbids it. Should they exile him? He is already destined to return. Every option leads back to the same end. And so they choose the path that feels safest. Control. The first attempt is almost playful. They bring a chain and challenge Fenrir to test his strength. The gods smile. They cheer. Fenrir agrees, amused by their confidence. When he snaps the chain with ease, laughter fills the air, but it is hollow. The gods feel relief and fear at the same time. The second chain is stronger. Heavier. Forged with intention rather than curiosity. Fenrir senses the shift. Still, he agrees. And again, he breaks free. This time, the silence that follows is heavy. The gods are no longer playing. Fenrir begins to understand. It is not his strength they fear. It is his future. The gods turn to the dwarves, not because they trust them, but because desperation demands miracles. The dwarves do not work with brute force. They work with paradox. They forge Gleipnir, a binding that feels harmless and holds eternity. Soft as silk. Stronger than any metal. When Fenrir sees Gleipnir, something inside him tightens. He is not foolish. He demands assurance. If this binding is so harmless, why does it unsettle the gods? He asks for a pledge. A sign of good faith. The gods hesitate. Only Tyr steps forward. Tyr understands law. He understands sacrifice. He understands that promises mean nothing without consequence. He places his hand into Fenrir's mouth, knowing what it will cost. This is not courage. This is tragedy wrapped in duty. When Fenrir realizes he has been deceived, his fury is immediate and absolute. He bites down. Tyr's hand is severed. Blood spills onto sacred ground. Justice is broken in order to preserve order. The gods win, but something essential is lost. Fenrir is bound. Not just physically, but morally. The moment trust is broken, fate accelerates. Bound beneath the earth, Fenrir does not thrash endlessly. He does not scream without thought. He waits. His hatred is not wild. It is focused. The Norse understood this kind of anger well. The anger that waits. The anger that remembers. Above him, the gods pretend stability has been restored. But cracks spread everywhere. Tyr is diminished. A god of justice who cannot enforce justice without compromise. Odin grows restless. His ravens return with darker visions. Loki withdraws. He laughs less. He speaks carefully. The binding of his son marks the final fracture between him and the gods. The world itself begins to respond. Wolves become more than animals. They become omens. Stories spread among humans of shadows in the forest that watch rather than hunt. The line between myth and reality thins. Time moves forward, and with it, decay. The signs of the end do not arrive suddenly. They seep in. Human morality weakens. Oaths are broken casually. Kin turn against kin. Blood feuds replace law. The sacred bonds that once mirrored the gods' order dissolve. This is not coincidence. In Norse belief, the moral state of humanity reflects the stability of the cosmos. As humans fall into chaos, the universe follows. Fimbulwinter arrives. 3 winters without summer. Snow that never melts. Hunger that never fades. Hope itself freezes. The sun and moon flee across the sky, chased relentlessly by wolves born of Fenrir's bloodline. When they are finally caught, darkness consumes the world. Beneath the earth, Fenrir feels the shift. Gleipnir strains. Every broken oath, every act of betrayal, every moment of fear feeds him. The binding was never meant to last forever. It was meant to delay the inevitable. And now, the delay has ended. The earth splits. Fenrir breaks free. This moment is not explosive. It is solemn. The wolf rises not in rage, but in certainty. The world has reached the point where balance demands collapse. Fenrir answers that demand. As Ragnarok begins, chaos does not feel chaotic. It feels precise. Each force meets its counterpart. Each destiny moves toward fulfillment. Fenrir charges forward, not as a villain, but as a necessary ending. Odin rides to meet him. There are no speeches. No negotiations. Odin has already done everything a god can do. He has learned. He has sacrificed. He has delayed. Now, he must face. Fenrir swallows him whole. This act is not revenge. It is completion. Vidar avenges his father. Fenrir falls. And with him, the age of gods ends. But the story does not end here. When the clash of Ragnarok finally fades, the Norse imagination does not linger on triumph or defeat. It lingers on silence. Smoke drifts across a broken world. The great forces that shaped existence have exhausted themselves. Gods lie fallen. Monsters lie still. The old order has completed its cycle. This silence is important. It is not emptiness. It is pause. In Norse belief, endings are never final. They are thresholds. The destruction Fenrir brings is not chaos for its own sake. It is the necessary clearing of what has grown rigid, fearful, and overburdened by its own attempts at control. Fenrir's death does not restore the old world. It makes way for something quieter. Something humbler. A world no longer ruled by gods who know the future. And that detail matters more than it seems. In the reborn world, some gods return. Not Odin. Not Thor. The survivors rule without the heavy shadow of prophecy. Humanity begins again without foreknowledge of its end. The cycle continues, but with less certainty, less fear, and less obsession with fate. Fenrir does not return. This absence is not accidental. Fenrir belonged to a world defined by inevitability. Once that world collapses, the wolf's role is complete. He was never meant to rule the new age. He was never meant to survive beyond his purpose. This reveals the deepest truth of Fenrir's symbolism. He is not destruction without meaning. He is destruction with restraint. He does not linger. He does not dominate. He arrives, fulfills, and vanishes. The Norse did not imagine a universe moving toward perfection. They imagined one moving through cycles of tension and release. Order rises. Order hardens. Order breaks. Something new begins. Fenrir exists only at the breaking point. To understand why this myth still resonates, one must step away from gods and monsters and look inward. Fenrir represents the consequence of fear-driven control. The gods see prophecy and respond with containment. They bind what they do not understand. They suppress what frightens them. In doing so, they ensure it grows in darkness. Fenrir's rage is not wild. It is disciplined. It is shaped by years of confinement. He does not lash out randomly. He moves directly toward Odin. Toward the source of authority. Toward the one who believed wisdom could outmaneuver fate. This is not rebellion. It is correction. Odin's flaw is not arrogance. It is obsession. He wants to know everything so that nothing surprises him. Fenrir represents the truth that some things cannot be neutralized by knowledge. Some truths must be lived through, not prevented. The Norse understood something modern minds often resist. Control creates pressure. Pressure creates rupture. Fenrir is rupture given form. This is why wolves carry such symbolic weight in Norse culture. They are not simply predators. They are boundary creatures. They exist between wilderness and civilization. They remind humans that order is fragile and always temporary. Fenrir magnifies this truth. He is the boundary where divine order collapses into renewal. In modern storytelling, Fenrir often appears stripped of this depth. He becomes a beast to be defeated, a monster to be conquered. But this interpretation misses the core of his meaning. Fenrir is not meant to be overcome. He is meant to be faced. This is why Odin does not attempt escape. He does not seek trickery at the final moment. He rides forward because dignity matters more than outcome. In Norse ethics, this choice defines worth. Fenrir and Odin are not opposites. They are mirrors. Both are bound by fate. Both act according to their nature. Both fulfill their roles completely. The tragedy lies not in their clash, but in the impossibility of any other ending. This myth survives because it speaks to a universal human experience. The fear of what we might become. The urge to suppress uncertainty. The belief that control equals safety. Fenrir teaches that what is suppressed does not disappear. It concentrates. When societies attempt to bind change, change returns violently. When individuals deny fear, fear grows stronger. When systems prioritize order over justice, collapse becomes inevitable. Fenrir is not warning of doom. He is warning of imbalance. The Norse did not ask their myths to comfort them. They asked them to prepare them. Fenrir prepares the listener to accept loss without collapse. To face endings without denial. To understand that destruction is not the opposite of meaning, but one of its expressions. In a world obsessed with victory, Fenrir offers something rarer. Acceptance without surrender. Courage without reward. Purpose without survival. This is why his howl still echoes through time. Not as terror, but as truth. The world will end in many ways. Not always with fire or wolves or gods falling from the sky. Sometimes it ends quietly. Sometimes it ends internally. Fenrir reminds us that endings are not failures. They are conclusions. And conclusions give shape to what came before. The ancient Norse knew they could not escape fate. But they believed deeply that how one meets fate defines everything. Fenrir met his without hesitation. Odin met his without retreat. And in that meeting, meaning was forged. The wolf destined to kill a god was never a villain. He was the final sentence in a story that demanded to be completed. Long before Fenrir breaks free and long before Odin rides toward his death, the seeds of Ragnarok are already buried deep within the structure of the cosmos. The Norse did not imagine their universe as stable. They imagined it as tense. Like a bow pulled tight, always on the edge of release. This tension is everywhere. Between fire and ice. Between gods and giants. Between law and chaos. Fenrir is not an anomaly in this system. He is its natural outcome. To the Norse mind, chaos is not evil. Chaos is potential. Without it, nothing new can exist. But chaos unrestrained is destruction. Order exists to shape chaos, not eliminate it. The tragedy of the gods lies in forgetting this balance. They try to imprison chaos rather than coexist with it. Fenrir represents chaos that has been denied its place. As the gods tighten their grip on the world pushes back. Giants stir beyond the borders of Asgard. The seas grow restless. Storms grow more violent. These are not punishments. They are responses. The universe correcting itself. Odin senses this long before Ragnarok. His ravens bring him visions of imbalance. He sees himself swallowed by the wolf. He sees the world burning. He sees his son standing over his corpse. And yet, despite all this knowledge, he continues on the same path. Not because he is blind, but because he is bound. Odin cannot act against his nature any more than Fenrir can. Odin seeks knowledge. Fenrir seeks release. Both are trapped in roles larger than themselves. The Norse gods are not masters of fate. They are its participants. This belief sets Norse mythology apart from nearly all others. The gods are not outside the system. They are inside it. Subject to the same laws. Vulnerable to the same consequences. This makes their failures more human and their sacrifices more meaningful. Fenrir's imprisonment is often remembered as a moment of victory for the gods. But the Norse storytellers did not treat it as such. They treated it as a moral wound. Something necessary, perhaps, but costly. Tyr's lost hand is not forgotten. It lingers as a symbol of justice compromised for security. In Norse culture, oaths were sacred. Breaking an oath fractured reality itself. When the gods broke faith with Fenrir, they weakened the moral foundation of their own rule. From that moment forward, the collapse was no longer avoidable. Fenrir does not rage blindly against the gods. He focuses. He grows. He waits. His patience is perhaps his most terrifying trait. He does not need to act early. Fate is already moving toward him. This patience mirrors the Norse understanding of time. Time is not a straight line. It is a loop. What has happened will happen again in some form. Ragnarok has happened before. It will happen again. Fenrir is not unique. He is inevitable. As generations pass, humans continue to tell these stories not to scare children, but to prepare adults. A warrior who believes he might survive forever fights differently from one who knows he will fall. The Norse warrior fought knowing death was certain. What mattered was how he stood when it came. Fenrir embodies the enemy that cannot be defeated, only faced. This is why he is not killed early. This is why the gods do not destroy him when they have the chance. Deep down, they know killing Fenrir would not prevent Ragnarok. It would only shift its shape. The wolf must exist. His role must be played. Even Loki understands this, though his understanding is poisoned by grief. Watching his son bound, betrayed, and condemned, Loki's loyalty dissolves. The trickster becomes something darker. Not because he seeks evil, but because he sees hypocrisy. The gods speak of order while breaking their own laws. Loki becomes the voice of that contradiction. When Loki finally turns against the gods, it is not sudden. It is the final movement of a long internal fracture. Fenrir's binding is not the first betrayal Loki witnesses, but it is the one that seals his fate. Thus, Ragnarok is not a sudden rebellion of monsters. It is a reckoning. Every force that rises against the gods was once tolerated, exploited, or betrayed by them. Fenrir. Loki. The giants. Even the dead. The Norse imagined the end not as an invasion, but as a return. Everything the gods pushed away comes back. Fenrir's role in this return is central because he represents the ultimate rejection of imposed order. He does not negotiate. He does not trick. He does not compromise. He simply fulfills what has been written into existence. When he devours Odin, the act carries layered meaning. Authority is consumed by consequence. Knowledge is consumed by inevitability. The seeker of wisdom is undone by the truth he already knew. This moment would have terrified Norse listeners, but it would also have comforted them. If even the gods fall, then death is not shameful. It is universal. It levels all beings. After Ragnarok, the world that rises is simpler. Fewer gods. Fewer rules. Fewer layers of power. The absence of Odin's obsessive foresight allows the new world to breathe. This suggests a subtle critique within the myth itself. Too much control suffocates life. Fenrir's absence in the New Age confirms this. His existence was tied to imbalance. When balance resets, the wolf is no longer required. This cycle teaches a lesson without moralizing it. It does not say control is wrong. It says control has limits. It does not say fate is cruel. It says fate is complete. Fenrir remains one of the most misunderstood figures in mythology because modern audiences often demand clear villains. Norse mythology does not offer them. It offers forces, roles, functions. Fenrir's function is to end what has grown too rigid to continue. And this is why he still resonates today. Fenrir's power does not end with mythology. His meaning extends far beyond the frozen landscapes of ancient Scandinavia, because the forces he represents never vanished. They simply changed shape. Where the Norse saw gods and monsters, modern minds see systems, ideologies, fears, and suppressed truths. Yet the pattern remains unchanged. Fenrir is what happens when fear becomes policy. The gods see prophecy and respond not with understanding, but with containment. They decide that if Fenrir cannot be destroyed, he must be restrained. This logic feels familiar even now. When societies encounter threats they do not understand, the instinct is not always to address the cause. It is to control the symptom. The Norse myth exposes the danger of this instinct without preaching against it. Fenrir does not become dangerous because he is born dangerous. He becomes dangerous because he is treated as inevitable evil. The gods do not ask who Fenrir is. They ask what Fenrir will do. That question alone seals his fate. This is one of the most unsettling elements of the myth. Fenrir never chooses his role. His destiny is assigned. Every action taken against him is justified by prophecy, not by behavior. The wolf is punished in advance. The Norse storytellers understood the moral weight of this. That is why Tyr's sacrifice is emphasized. Tyr does not lose his hand because Fenrir is cruel. He loses it because justice is broken in the name of safety. The gods pay a price for their choice, even if the choice feels necessary. This balance between necessity and guilt runs through the entire myth. Odin's pursuit of wisdom mirrors modern obsession with prediction. The desire to foresee outcomes, to model futures, to eliminate uncertainty. Odin sacrifices comfort, wholeness, even dignity to know what will happen. And yet, knowledge does not grant him escape. It only makes the burden heavier. Fenrir represents the limit of foresight. Some outcomes cannot be neutralized by preparation. Some consequences arrive precisely because they are anticipated and resisted. The more tightly the gods grip the future, the more violently it pushes back. This is not a condemnation of wisdom. The Norse valued knowledge deeply. But they understood that wisdom without humility becomes tyranny over possibility. Fenrir is the force that breaks that tyranny. The myth also explores the psychology of confinement. Fenrir's rage is shaped by time. Years of immobility. Years of betrayal replayed in silence. This is not the rage of impulse. It is the rage of reflection. It grows sharper, not louder. When Fenrir finally acts, he does not waste motion. He goes directly to Odin. This precision is crucial. Fenrir does not attack randomly. He does not destroy for pleasure. He fulfills the exact shape of his destiny. This challenges modern ideas of rebellion. Fenrir is not chaos for chaos's sake. He is order correcting itself through destruction. The Norse saw this pattern everywhere. Winter kills crops so spring can begin again. Fire clears land so forests can grow. Death makes room for life. Fenrir belongs to this natural logic. He is terrifying only if one denies the necessity of endings. This is why Ragnarok does not end in nothingness. It ends in renewal. The gods who survive are not the ones obsessed with control. They are quieter. More grounded. Less driven by foresight. Humanity returns without prophecy hanging over every step. Fenrir's absence in this new world is not a loss. It is proof that his role was temporary. He was needed only while imbalance existed. This challenges the idea that destruction is inherently negative. The Norse believed that destruction has a place. When systems become rigid, when power accumulates unchecked, when fear overrides justice, collapse is not failure. It is correction. Fenrir embodies this correction. Modern retellings often strip Fenrir of this depth. He becomes a villain to be defeated, a monster to be overcome by heroes. This reflects a cultural discomfort with inevitability. Many modern stories insist on victory. The Norse were more honest. They allowed loss to carry meaning. Fenrir teaches that some battles are not meant to be won. They are meant to be faced. This idea resonates deeply in a world that struggles with uncertainty. Climate change. Social collapse. Personal loss. Aging. Death. These are modern Fenrirs. Forces we attempt to bind with policy, denial, or distraction. The myth suggests that binding alone is not enough. Understanding and acceptance must accompany it. The Norse did not surrender to fate passively. They resisted it with dignity. Odin rides to his death not to change the outcome, but to meet it on his feet. Fenrir does not mock this. He completes it. This mutual fulfillment is what gives the myth its gravity. There is no laughter. No cruelty. Only completion. Fenrir's jaws closing around Odin mark the end of a world built on control through knowledge. The new world that rises is not ignorant, but it is less obsessed with prediction. It allows life to unfold. This may be the most radical idea in Norse mythology. That letting go of certainty may be necessary for renewal. Fenrir is not the enemy of life. He is the enemy of stagnation. This is why his story endures. Not because it comforts, but because it tells the truth. That all things end. That endings are not punishments. That dignity lies in acceptance, not denial. The wolf destined to kill a god is not a symbol of evil. He is a symbol of completion. And completion, though frightening, is what allows the next story to begin. When the Norse told the story of Fenrir, they were not warning their listeners about monsters hiding in the dark. They were warning them about fear hiding in certainty. Fenrir is frightening not because he destroys the gods, but because the gods help create the conditions that make his destruction necessary. This is what makes the myth endure. It does not place blame on a single figure. Not on Fenrir. Not on Loki. Not even on Odin. Instead, it shows how choices ripple through time. How fear compounds. How prophecy, once believed too strongly, becomes self-fulfilling. Fenrir never speaks in the surviving myths, yet his silence is powerful. He does not argue his innocence. He does not plead. He does not explain himself. He exists, grows, waits, and fulfills what the world demands of him. In this way, he represents forces far larger than personality. He is inevitability given shape. The Norse did not imagine fate as cruel. They imagined it as complete. Nothing escapes it, but nothing is singled out by it either. Gods and wolves fall under the same law. This equality is one of the most striking features of Norse belief. Power does not grant exemption. Wisdom does not grant immunity. Even love does not grant protection. What grants meaning is how one acts within those limits. Odin acts by seeking. By sacrificing. By preparing. And finally, by riding forward without retreat. Fenrir acts by enduring. By remembering. By completing what was denied expression for too long. Neither is portrayed as wrong. Neither is portrayed as victorious. This refusal to simplify is what separates Norse mythology from later traditions. There is no promise that righteousness will be rewarded. No assurance that villains will be punished. There is only the certainty that actions matter, even when outcomes cannot be changed. Fenrir matters because he forces the listener to confront uncomfortable truths. That control has limits. That suppression has consequences. That not every threat can be neutralized peacefully. And that not every ending is avoidable. The Norse lived with this knowledge daily. The sea could swallow them without warning. Winter could starve them. War could erase generations. And still, they told stories not of escape, but of endurance. Fenrir is endurance inverted. He endures confinement until endurance becomes destruction. This inversion is deliberate. It shows what happens when balance is lost. When endurance is forced instead of chosen. When patience is demanded instead of earned. In modern times, Fenrir continues to appear in art, literature, games, and film because he embodies a universal anxiety. The fear that something we are trying to contain will eventually break free. The fear that systems built on control will collapse. The fear that knowledge will not save us. And yet, the myth does not leave the listener in despair. After Fenrir fulfills his role, the world does not remain broken. It renews. Not into perfection, but into possibility. The new world is quieter. Less crowded with gods. Less burdened by prophecy. Humanity begins again without the weight of knowing exactly how it will end. This suggests that perhaps the greatest burden is not mortality, but certainty. Fenrir removes certainty by ending the old order. In doing so, he allows life to continue without constant anticipation of doom. The Norse may not have articulated this philosophically, but they felt it deeply. The wolf destined to kill Odin was not meant to be feared forever. He was meant to be understood. Understanding Fenrir does not mean justifying destruction. It means recognizing when destruction becomes unavoidable. It means acknowledging that systems, beliefs, and structures that refuse to change will eventually be broken by forces they tried to suppress. Fenrir is the breaking point. And the breaking point is where truth emerges. This is why the story closes not with celebration, but with reflection. The Norse listener was not meant to cheer Odin's death or Fenrir's fall. They were meant to sit with the weight of it. To feel the sadness. The inevitability. And the strange calm that follows acceptance. The myth invites the listener to ask not how to avoid Fenrir, but how to live honorably knowing Fenrir exists. That question remains relevant today. Every era has its wolves. Forces labeled too dangerous to confront honestly. Futures we attempt to bind instead of understand. Fears we imprison instead of address. Fenrir reminds us that what we bind without justice does not disappear. It waits. But the myth also reminds us that when the breaking finally comes, it is not the end of meaning. It is the end of illusion. In that sense, Fenrir is not merely the wolf who kills a god. He is the force that strips power of its pretense. That reveals truth beneath authority. That completes a cycle so another may begin. The Norse did not promise their listeners safety. They promised them dignity. And in that promise, Fenrir has a place. Not as a villain to be defeated. Not as a hero to be admired. But as a truth that cannot be ignored. The wolf howls once. The world ends. And from the silence, life begins again.